What I'm about to tell you is the reason Admiral Richard Byrd was silenced until his final breath. While the world looks at Antarctica as a frozen wasteland, the U.S. military is hiding something that defies the laws of physics. And it's not human. That is the claim, not the official story, not the clean version printed for classrooms and treaty rooms. The claim. And like most claims that sound insane at first, this one starts with something completely ordinary. A treaty. In 1959, the world was told Antarctica would be protected. No armies, no weapons testing, no military bases. Just scientists, ice cores, penguins, and peace. A continent locked away for the good of mankind, which sounds beautiful, almost too beautiful. The Antarctic Treaty made the southern continent look harmless, sterile, noble. A white desert where nations set aside their differences and worked together. And maybe part of that is true. But the best cover stories always contain enough truth to survive inspection. That is what makes them useful. Because if you wanted to hide black projects from the rest of the world, you wouldn't build them in Nevada anymore. Too many satellites, too many hikers, too many bored people with drones. You would build them somewhere nobody is allowed to casually visit. Somewhere the weather kills curiosity. Somewhere every restricted zone can be explained with one sentence. For your safety. And that brings us to Admiral Richard Byrd. In 1946, Byrd helped lead Operation High Jump. Officially, it was a massive Antarctic expedition. 13 ships, thousands of men, aircraft, supplies, cameras. Enough military hardware to make a scientific survey look like a small invasion. And then, within weeks, the mission was over. That part matters, because long missions get cut short for boring reasons all the time. Bad weather, mechanical problems, logistics. Antarctica does not negotiate. But the stories that grew around High Jump were never about bad weather. They were about fear. The phrase people keep coming back to is this one: Operation High Jump Secret Diary Findings. Not because the diary is accepted history, it isn't, but because the alleged entries describe something that official reports do not. A flight beyond mapped territory, a green valley beneath the ice, a city, or something like one, and contact. Now, before we go further, hold two thoughts in your head at the same time. 1. The official record does not confirm this. 2. The rumor refused to die. That usually means one of two things. Either people are feeding a myth, or the official record left a wound open. Then there is the line, the one that turns a strange polar expedition into something else. He reported being attacked by crafts that could fly from pole to pole at incredible speeds. That sentence has followed Byrd for decades. Some versions place it in newspaper interviews. Some attach it to briefings. Some treat it like a warning. And some people hear it and say, no, that was Cold War anxiety. Long-range aircraft, future weapons, nothing more. That is the reasonable explanation. For a minute, it almost works. Then comes the map. The alleged hollow Earth entrance map is the part where most people stop listening. And honestly, you can't blame them. A hidden opening into the planet sounds like pulp fiction. It sounds like something printed on the back page of a magazine that also sells miracle magnets. But here is the problem. The story does not ask you to believe in a fantasy world under the crust. It asks something worse. What if the entrance was not geological? What if it was a military name for a zone, a corridor, a no-fly grid? A place on the map where instruments failed, radios died, and pilots were told to forget what they saw. That is less fun. It is also harder to laugh off. Search forums still argue over Antarctica hidden base coordinates 2024. Most of them are noise, blurry satellite screenshots, misread shadows, people seeing rectangles because the human brain loves rectangles. But every once in a while, you find an image that does not look like ice. Not exactly. Straight lines, heat signatures, road-like scars in places with no roads. And then the official answer comes back the same every time. Natural formations, compression artifacts, research activity. Move along.
Which brings us to McMurdo Station. Publicly, McMurdo is the largest research station in Antarctica, a logistical hub, a place for scientists, support crews, and supply flights. That part is real. But conspiracy researchers claim McMurdo is also a doorway, not to hollow earth, to infrastructure, deep infrastructure, miles of tunnels under permafrost. A former Raytheon military contractor, speaking anonymously in one widely circulated account, allegedly described work that had nothing to do with climate science. His line was simple. We weren't digging for ice samples. We were uncovering a massive metallic structure that emitted a constant 40 hertz hum. 40 hertz. Not loud, not dramatic, just present, like the building itself was breathing. According to the story, the first crews thought it was equipment noise, generators, ventilation, ground resonance, something explainable. Then they turned the machines off. The hum stayed. That is where the account changes tone. The contractor claimed certain lower tunnels were marked as the red zone. No phones, no personal cameras, no unescorted movement, and no written explanation. Just red paint, locked doors, and men who suddenly stopped joking. That detail feels small. It isn't. People joke when they're scared. They stop joking when fear becomes procedural. Then came the disappearances. Again alleged. Again unproven. But the pattern in the story is specific. Personnel wander past the authorized tunnel line. Radio contact drops. Search teams go in. They find equipment. They find boot marks. Sometimes they find a helmet. They do not find the person. And because this is Antarctica, the final report has a wonderful little escape hatch. Environmental hazard, which is a clean phrase, very professional. It can mean ice collapse. It can mean hypothermia. It can also mean nobody wants to write the real sentence. This is where the question sharpens. What did Admiral Byrd see in Antarctica? Not what people say he saw. Not what the internet turned him into. What did he see that made the story mutate? For almost 80 years. Because myths need fuel. They do not burn this long on nothing. Now add the satellite data. Thermal anomalies in uninhabited ice fields. Heat holes. Warm signatures where there should be nothing but dead cold. Some are volcanic. Some are sensor errors. Some are probably just boring science wearing a spooky mask. Fine, but not all explanations carry the same weight. When you see repeated heat signatures near regions tied to old military routes, restricted logistics, and rumors of underground activity, the question changes. It is no longer, is this proof? It is, why does every clean answer require you to ignore the next dirty detail? That phrase, ancient structures under Antarctica ice, sounds ridiculous until you remember something. Ice preserves, it hides, it crushes, but it also seals time away from the rest of the planet. If something old was down there, Antarctica would be the perfect vault. And if something advanced was down there, it would be the perfect prison. Maybe that is why the continent is not treated like land. It is treated like a lid. Here is the darkest theory, not the most proven, the darkest. Antarctica isn't a continent. It's a massive natural Faraday cage protecting the world's most dangerous experimental tech. Think about that. A frozen shield, low population, extreme electromagnetic weirdness, a place where classified military bases in Antarctica can be dismissed in public because the treaty says they cannot exist, which is, of course, the neatest kind of denial, the kind backed by paperwork. In this version of the story, Project Blue Beam was not a plan for the sky. It was a test, a rehearsal, a way to study how populations react when reality itself appears negotiable. Lights above cities, signals from nowhere, objects moving wrong, and behind it, not one government, but shadow network using Antarctic isolation to test systems no nation could admit owning, energy weapons, projection tech, non-human communication, or collaboration. That word is the one nobody likes. Collaboration suggests choice. It suggests someone opened the door. Maybe that is what Byrd saw. Not an enemy, not a weather event, a relationship. And if that is true, then the cover-up was never about aliens in the ice. It was about who answered them. So when someone asks why Antarctica is guarded by treaties, logistics, military-adjacent contractors, and silence, the safe answer is easy. Science, peace, preservation. And maybe that's all it is. Maybe every heat signature has a natural cause. Maybe every missing story is just a rumor. Maybe the so-called Operation High Jump Secret Diary findings are nothing more than fantasy dressed up as evidence. That would be comforting. It would also leave one question sitting in the room. Why does the official story need so much empty space around it? Because the ice does not explain itself. The treaty does not explain Byrd. The coordinates do not explain the heat. And the red zone, if it exists, explains nothing at all. It only points downward. So maybe Antarctica is exactly what we were told. A frozen continent, a scientific preserve, a monument to international cooperation. Or maybe it is the one place on Earth where the map is still lying to us. If you think the military is only hiding bases in the ice, wait until you see what they found on the dark side of the moon. Click right here to see why NASA stopped going back.